In the ashes of a war between humans and the last of an alien race, a wounded alien mother and her small child flee through the ruins of a frozen wasteland. When a human soldier finds them shivering in the snow, he faces a brutal choice: obey the law and turn them in, or defy everything he's been taught and offer them warmth. Against every rule, he lights a fire and keeps them hidden. That single act of mercy begins to unravel everything he knows about his world, his orders, and his own humanity. As they hide together through the night, old boundaries blur. The alien mother, scarred and soft-spoken, shares memories of her people's fall, the betrayal that started the war and the secret they carried. Her child, innocent and strange, holds a gift that could end the conflict if discovered. When patrols close in and betrayal threatens, the soldier risks everything to protect them, even as his own kind brands him a traitor. What begins as one night of compassion becomes a journey through snow, fire, and truth, ending in a moment that will redefine what it means to be human, and what it means to keep someone warm when the world turns cold. Snow fell in whispering spirals through the broken steel bones of what used to be a city. The ruins stretched for miles, glowing faintly with the pale reflection of the moons, a graveyard of both species. Sergeant Callan trudged through the wreckage, rifle slung low, visor flickering with static from the radiation storms that had not quite ended even 10 years after the fall. His breath fogged in his helmet as his boots cracked thin ice underfoot. The war was technically over, at least on paper, but Command still sent patrols into the forbidden zones to make sure nothing alien remained alive. They called it cleanup. He called it pretending. He paused beside a collapsed building where frost covered what had once been windows. His scanner chirped faintly, a trace of heat. He frowned. Nothing should be warm out here. He adjusted the range. The signal was weak, trembling, as if hidden behind a wall. He moved closer, sweeping his light over the rubble. For a moment he thought he saw movement. A flicker, a shadow that drew back instantly. Then silence again, except for the distant hiss of snow. "Command, I've got a thermal anomaly in Sector 4, he murmured, but static drowned his voice. The radio link was dead, like always. The storms never really stopped. He sighed, lifted his rifle, and approached. The signal pulsed stronger now, 2 small heat sources pressed close together. He stepped over twisted metal, brushed aside the remains of a cloth banner burned black by time, and then saw them. A woman, not human, crouched behind a beam, her arm bleeding blue where shrapnel had torn through the thin fabric of her suit. Her skin was pale gray with faint glowing veins that pulsed like starlight beneath the surface. Her eyes widened at him, wide and fearful, holding an intensity that froze him mid-step. Beside her, a small child, no older than 6 by human measure, clung to her side, shivering. Callan froze, rifle half-raised. His orders were clear. If any of them were found alive, they were to be processed. A word that meant death in every dialect. The aliens had been blamed for starting the war, for bringing the plague that wiped out half of Earth's northern colonies. But standing there, watching this woman wrap her body around her child, he didn't see an enemy. He saw desperation. The mother whispered something in her language, a soft ripple of sound like wind through glass. The child whimpered, hiding its face. Callan lowered his weapon slowly, heartbeat thundering. "Don't move," he said quietly. His voice trembled more than he wanted it to. She didn't move, just watched him, as if trying to measure the meaning of his tone. He took a step closer, scanning her wound. It wasn't deep but looked infected. The cold was killing her faster than blood loss. He could see the tremors racking her body, her breath shallow and uneven. The child was wrapped in a torn thermal blanket, barely big enough to cover its small frame. He knew what would happen if he left them. The temperature was dropping fast, -30 before dawn. They wouldn't last an hour. He should call it in. He should end this. But he didn't. Callan knelt, slowly setting his rifle aside. The alien mother's eyes flicked to it, then back to him. He took off his gloves and reached into his pack. "I'm not going to hurt you," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if she understood. Her species, the Varan, had a remarkable way of reading emotion through sound and gesture more than words. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to his heartbeat. He pulled out a heat cell, a small portable generator, and set it between them. With a soft hum, it began to glow, releasing a gentle warmth that pushed back the chill. The child reached out hesitantly, tiny fingers brushing the warmth with visible awe. For the first time, Callan saw the alien mother's expression change. Not relief exactly, but something quieter, older. Gratitude. He glanced at her wound again, then back at her eyes. "You're bleeding," he said softly, pointing to her arm. She looked down, then slowly extended it. Her hand trembled as she let him touch her. Her skin was cold, smoother than any human's. He wrapped it with bandage tape from his medkit, his fingers shaking slightly from the absurdity of what he was doing. If Command ever found out, he'd be court-martialed, maybe shot. When he finished, she whispered again, a fragile tone that seemed to echo in the air. Then, in broken human speech, she said, "You would not kill." He froze. Her accent was heavy, each syllable careful, uncertain. "No," he said after a moment. "Not tonight." She studied his face through the cracked visor, as if searching for deceit. "Why?" He hesitated, then looked around at the empty ruins. "Because no one should die in the cold." Something shifted in her eyes, something like disbelief. The child tugged her arm and whispered in their tongue. She nodded faintly, then reached out, pulling the child close. Callan noticed how she leaned slightly toward the warmth, as if her body craved it but her mind still distrusted it. He sat across from them, back against a beam, letting the silence stretch. The snow hissed softly outside, and for the first time in months, he turned off the external speakers on his helmet just to hear the quiet. The alien child eventually dozed off against its mother's lap. She stayed awake, eyes fixed on him. "Your name?" she asked suddenly, voice slow, deliberate. "Callan," he said. "Sergeant Callan Rowe." She nodded faintly. "Rowe," she repeated, testing the sound like a memory. "I am Syrah." He nodded back. "Syrah," he said, and the word felt strange on his tongue, soft and full of something unspoken. She looked down at her sleeping child, then back at him. "You hide us." He blinked. "Hide you?" "Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Patrol come soon. They kill all Varen." He swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. His squad was sweeping the sector. He had maybe 30 minutes before they circled back. The thought hit him like a blow. He'd have to choose. If they found her, she'd die. If they didn't, he'd be lying to his own command. He stared into the flickering heat cell, light reflecting in his visor like small fires trapped in glass. He'd seen enough bodies, enough burning cities, enough children crying over things they didn't understand. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he'd already broken inside without realizing it. He looked up and met her gaze. "Where would you go?" She hesitated, then pointed toward the horizon where the mountains were barely visible through the storm. "Old tunnels. Under snow. Safe there." He nodded slowly. "You won't make it without help." She said nothing, but the way her eyes softened told him she understood his meaning. He stood up, slinging his rifle. "If I help you," he said quietly, "you stay silent. No noise. No light." Syrah's lips parted slightly, a small shiver of hope crossing her face. "You help." He gave a single nod. "I'll hide you. Until morning." Her breath caught, faint mist in the cold. "Why?" she asked again, softer this time. Callan looked at her child, then at the ruins around them, where the ghosts of war whispered through every broken wall. "Because," he said, "someone once hid me too." For a long moment, neither spoke. The storm outside grew louder, snow swirling like ash. The heat cell flickered, its glow casting their faces in amber and blue. Then Syrah reached out slowly, hesitantly, and placed her uninjured hand near his, close enough that he could feel the faint pulse beneath her skin. "Then," she said softly, "we warmed together." The words lingered in the cold, fragile and dangerous. And outside, in the distance, The sound of approaching engines echoed faintly through the storm. The storm thickened through the night, swallowing the city in a pale blur of snow and static. The wind clawed at the walls, rattling metal beams like bones beneath the earth. Sergeant Callan huddled close to the faint glow of the heat cell, its pulse dimming as power waned. Across from him, Syrah cradled her child, the blue glow of her veins flickering faintly through her torn sleeve. The child whimpered in its sleep, a small, almost musical sound that didn't belong in a world this dead. He checked the scanner again, 3 red dots approaching slowly from the east. Patrol. They were sweeping the grid as predicted. He turned the heat cell off immediately, plunging them into darkness. The sudden cold stabbed at his lungs. Syrah's eyes widened, her body tightening around the child. Callan gestured sharply for silence. They waited, breaths shallow, as the faint whine of drone engines hummed through the air above. Blue light swept across the ruins like searchlight fingers, passed over them once, twice, then moved on. One of the drones lingered, its sensors whining. Callan could almost feel its gaze. Then, finally, the sound receded into the storm, fading into the white void. Only then did he release the breath he'd been holding. Syrah looked at him, confusion shadowing her face. "You no tell them?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No." Her voice trembled, the alien accent turning her words into fragile shapes. "Law say kill. Why you not?" He didn't answer. He didn't have an answer that made sense. Instead, he reached into his pack, pulled out the last of his rations, and handed it to her. She hesitated, then accepted it. Her fingers brushed his, cool, delicate, strangely human. She broke the bar in half and gave the smaller piece to her child before tasting the rest. The way she looked at him after cautious, grateful questioning was more than he could handle. He turned away, adjusting his rifle just to keep his hands busy. When the child finished eating, Syrah leaned back against the wall, exhaustion softening her sharp movements. "You help. You break your law?" she said slowly, as if tasting the words. "Law of fire." He frowned. "Law of fire?" She nodded faintly. "On my world, those who share fire are bound. Even enemies. The warmth chooses truth." He almost smiled, the irony not lost on him. "That's a dangerous law." Her gaze was steady. "Yours too." The wind howled outside, the ruins moaning with it. He adjusted the heat cell again, reigniting it on low output. Orange light flickered weakly, painting her face in soft, unreal color. For a moment, she didn't look alien at all. Just another survivor trying to keep a child alive. "You should sleep," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No sleep. If I sleep, I not wake." He studied her, noticing how her breathing hitched with pain. The bandage he'd wrapped was already soaked through, the blue glow dimming around the wound. Infection, he thought grimly. Human antibiotics might not help her kind. He reached for a small vial from his medkit anyway and drew closer. "This might sting," he said. She watched his every move as he cleaned and sealed the wound. When he finished, she whispered something in her language, short, melodic, and full of weight. "That means gratitude," she explained softly when she saw his questioning look. He nodded, unsure how to respond. Words felt useless here. The silence between them grew heavy, filled only by the sound of wind and the soft rhythm of the child's breathing. He leaned back, staring at the dull glow of the fire. His thoughts drifted where he didn't want them to go, back to another winter years ago, when he'd been the one hiding. The first wave of bombings had leveled his hometown. He'd been just a boy, trapped in the wreckage with his sister. It was a Varan patrol that had found them, not humans. He'd expected death. Instead, they had shared their rations, kept them warm until rescue came. He'd never told anyone that story. No one would have believed it. The child stirred, blinking open eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, irises shifting between silver and blue. It stared at him curiously, then reached a tiny hand toward his uniform badge. "Human?" it whispered, testing the word. He nodded, trying not to smile. "Yeah, human." "Human fire?" the child murmured, glancing at the heat cell. Sira whispered something gently, and the child nodded, curling back into her arms. He watched them until sleep began to blur his vision. He should have stayed alert, but exhaustion crept up on him like frost. He woke to silence. The storm had faded to a slow drift of snow. The heat cell was nearly dead, its glow faint. Sira sat across from him, watching the dawn seep into the cracks of the ruined wall. She looked different in that light, calmer, almost peaceful. "You dream," she said softly. He blinked. "How do you know?" She tilted her head. "Your heart was loud." He huffed a quiet laugh. "That's one way to put it." For a while, neither spoke. The cold outside eased slightly as sunlight touched the ruins, glinting off frost and broken glass. Callan's scanner beeped faintly. His team was closing in again. He stood quickly, scanning the perimeter. "They'll be back soon," he said. "We have to move." Sira gathered her child instantly, her movements fluid despite her wound. "Where?" "There's a tunnel network under the south sector," he said. "Old metro lines. If we can reach it, you can hide there until I find a way to get you out." She hesitated. "You come too." He hesitated too long. "If I can." She looked at him for a long moment, eyes searching. "They kill you," she said finally. "For helping me." He tightened the strap on his pack. "Probably." Her next words were almost a whisper. "Then why help?" He looked at her, at the way she stood between him and the cold, shielding her child, her body trembling but unbroken. "Because sometimes," he said quietly, "the law isn't right." Sira seemed to absorb that. Then slowly she stepped closer. The air between them shimmered faintly with the heat of the dying fire. She extended her hand, her palm hovering close to his chest. "Then by the law of fire," she murmured, "I keep you warm." The moment was small, fragile, and utterly forbidden. But it changed something in him. He didn't flinch when her fingers brushed the edge of his armor, or when warmth, real, alive warmth, spread through him like a pulse. Then the radio crackled in his ear, sudden and sharp. "Sergeant Rowe, report. We found tracks near your sector. You see anything?" He froze. His eyes met Sira's. Her face went pale, her hand dropping back. The child clung tighter to her side. "Sergeant?" the voice repeated. "Confirm status." Callan looked at them, then at the heat cell still faintly glowing between them. Their shared fire, their shared lie. He pressed the comm switch and forced his voice steady. "Negative command," he said. "Sector's clear. Just wind and ghosts." There was a pause, static crackling. "Copy that. Proceed to next sector." The radio went silent. Callan exhaled slowly, his heart hammering. He looked back at Sira. Her expression said everything. Fear, disbelief, and something else he couldn't name. Outside, the wind rose again, carrying the faint sound of distant engines. He knew they were running out of time. He picked up his rifle and met her eyes. "We move before they find this place," he said. Sira nodded. "Then we keep fire alive." And together, in defiance of every law written by man or God, they stepped out into the cold. The tunnels swallowed them whole. Cold, black, and endless. They stretched beneath the ruined city like the veins of some long-dead creature. The air smelled of rust and memory. Dripping water echoed in the distance, each drop amplifying the silence that followed. Callan led the way, flashlight trembling across broken rails and ancient graffiti half buried in frost. Behind him, Sira carried her sleeping child, wrapped tightly in the last of her blanket. They had been walking for nearly 2 hours, deeper into the dark. His scanner was useless here. The rock interfered with the signal. Still, he could feel the weight of pursuit behind them, the invisible pull of his own squad somewhere above, tracking the ghost of his signal. He'd disabled his beacon, but command would notice soon. They'd wonder why his telemetry vanished. They'd send someone. They always did. "Not much farther," he murmured, more to keep himself sane than to reassure her. "There's an old service junction ahead. We can rest there." Sira said nothing. Her breathing was shallow, labored. She limped slightly from her wound, but she never complained. The child's faint, rhythmic breath against her shoulder was the only proof of life in this tomb of concrete and shadow. When they reached the junction, Callan swept the light around the cavern. It was wide enough for 3 of them to sit comfortably. The walls were lined with rusted pipes and ancient human signs, letters worn down by time. Subline, Level 3 Maintenance. He placed the heat cell down again, the dim flame flickering weakly to life. Its warmth felt fragile here, barely enough to push back the chill. Sira sat slowly, lowering her child to the ground. The little one stirred, blinking sleepily. "Where we?" it asked softly in its half-formed tongue. "Safe," Sira whispered, brushing a hand over its hair. "For now." Callan crouched near the cell, adjusting the power feed to stretch it longer. The silence between them was filled with dripping water and the occasional creak of distant metal. Then Sira's voice broke it, quiet and strange in the stillness. "My world was warm," she said. "Always light. Oceans that glowed at night. We called it Valen. You called it the first strike." He glanced at her, unsure if she was speaking to him or to herself. "Valen," he repeated slowly. "That was your homeworld?" She nodded faintly. "Was." Her eyes reflected the faint light, silver pools of memory. "We did not want war. We came to speak. Your leaders feared us. They said our light was weapon." Callan frowned. "That's not what they taught us." Her gaze lifted to him, steady and sorrowful. "No, because truth burns like fire, and humans fear fire too." He wanted to argue, to tell her about the cities that vanished in the first Varen bombardment, about the black storms that followed, about the children who coughed blue smoke before dying. But the way she looked at him, tired, quiet, certain, made him hesitate. "We never fired first," she said softly. "We carried healing stones. Your kind took them, studied them, made weapons from them. When we asked for them back, your fleets came." She closed her eyes, her voice trembling. "They burned our seas. The light dimmed. Our children's eyes stopped glowing. The songs died first." Her child, half asleep, murmured something in their language. She brushed its hair and smiled faintly through the ache. "He does not remember the songs," she said. "He was born after the silence." Callan's throat tightened. The air in the tunnel felt heavier now, filled with ghosts. "You're saying humans started it?" Sira's expression didn't change. "Does it matter who started it if both burned?" That struck him harder than any accusation. He sat back against the wall, staring into the flickering firelight. He'd always thought of the Varen as invaders, monsters who brought ruin to humanity's last colonies. But sitting here, hearing her voice tremble not with hatred but with sorrow, the clean lines of propaganda blurred into gray. He remembered the first time he'd seen a Varen corpse. Eyes dimmed to gray, veins no longer glowing. He'd been told they bled poison. He'd been ordered to burn the bodies. Now he realized their blood had shimmered because it was full of bioluminescent proteins, not toxin. Something alive, something beautiful. He'd burned that beauty without question. Sira's voice softened further, almost a whisper. "My mate died in the fall. I carried our son to the stars. They said Earth was death, but I came anyway. To hide. To live." "Why here?" Callan asked. Her gaze met his, ancient pain glimmering within. "Because your world killed ours. Maybe it owed us breath." He looked away, unable to meet her eyes. The truth of it gnawed at him. All those years, all those missions, how much of what he'd done was justice and how much was obedience? The fire dimmed again. He reached out to adjust it, his hand brushing against hers by accident. She didn't pull away this time. Her fingers lingered, cold but steady. "You have gentle heart," she said quietly. "But gentle hearts die in war." He gave a weak smile. "Maybe they deserve to." "No," she said, firm now. "Gentle hearts remember light." For a long while they sat in silence. The child had drifted into sleep again, breathing softly against Sira's lap. The sound was fragile, almost musical. Callan felt the ache of exhaustion creeping up on him again, but something in him refused to close his eyes. "What if they find us?" he asked softly. Sira didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, she reached into the folds of her torn cloak and withdrew a small crystal the size of a coin. It shimmered faintly, pulsing with soft blue light. "They will come for this," she whispered. "The last memory stone." He leaned forward. "What is it?" "Memory," she said, "of who we were, of what was lost. It holds our voices, our songs, our history. But to humans it is energy." He stared at the glow, mesmerized. The light pulsed faintly in rhythm with the child's breathing. "How much energy?" "Enough to burn a city," she said simply. "Or heal one." He swallowed hard. "That's why they're hunting you." She nodded. "They think we hide weapons. But we hide memories. Because memories change hearts." Callan looked at the crystal, the firelight dancing across its surface. Then at her. "If they knew, if Command knew it wasn't a weapon, they would still take it," she said, cutting him off gently. "Because power does not need truth. Only fear." Her words echoed through the tunnel, settling into the silence like a prayer. Callan leaned back again, running a hand through his hair. "You're asking me to believe everything I've fought for is built on a lie." Sira looked at him for a long moment, her eyes reflecting the dying light. "No," she said softly. "I ask you to see. Believe or not, it will not change what is already gone." He didn't know what to say. The weight of her story pressed against his chest like the air itself had thickened. Outside, somewhere above the miles of rock and snow, the world went on burning in its quiet, endless war. Sira lay back against the wall, pulling her child close. The faint glow of the crystal cast a circle of light around them, like the echo of a forgotten sun. Callan watched as her eyes finally closed, exhaustion overtaking her. He stayed awake, rifle across his knees, staring at the shifting shadows. Somewhere deep in the tunnel, a sound echoed, a whisper of movement. He tensed, finger brushing the trigger, but it faded as quickly as it came. When he looked back at Sira, the crystal's light flickered once, twice, and then steadied, like a heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, he knew the truth wasn't done whispering. Snow whispered against the broken concrete as the wind prowled through the ruins, low and cold, curling into every hollow like a voice trying to speak. The soldier crouched in the shadows beneath the cracked arch of an old dome, his breath shallow, his rifle drawn but useless now for what he was doing. Behind him, the alien mother and her small child lay wrapped in the faded thermal blanket he'd stolen from the outpost. Their faint, slow breathing made him tighten his grip on the weapon, not from fear of them but from fear of everything else. The distant crunch of boots on frost, the metallic clatter of a patrol scanning for life signatures. His visor flickered with incoming data. Recon unit approaching ETA 004. He didn't move. The patrol's lights cut across the distance, beams sweeping through mist and ruin. Voices carried, human voices, filtered through masks, sharp with suspicion and fatigue. "Sector 7's got heat traces again," one said. "Probably another scavenger. Or maybe one of them." A second voice laughed, the sound brittle. "If it's one of them, Command will be pleased. The new bounty's enough to feed a whole company." The soldier pressed his back harder into the wall, his pulse hammering. The woman behind him stirred, whispering something in her language, soft, musical, the syllables trembling. The child whimpered, and the soldier turned sharply, pressing a gloved finger to his lips. "Quiet," he mouthed. She nodded, eyes wide, her silvery pupils flickering faintly like light underwater. He could feel their fear like heat. He'd promised to protect them. But now the sound of the patrol drew closer. Boots scraping metal, scanners whining as they sliced the dark. The lead officer's voice echoed through a speaker. "Thermal spike detected near Quadrant 12. Team Bravo, sweep the lower structures." The soldier's throat went dry. Quadrant 12 was here. His team, his brothers in arms. He forced himself to breathe evenly, to think. He'd trained for ambushes, infiltrations, kill missions, but not this. Not how to hide from the people who'd taught him to survive. He switched off his comlink and crouched lower, guiding the alien mother and her child into a hollow space beneath a collapsed stairwell. The opening was narrow. Dust fell in silent streams as they squeezed in. The child's tiny hand clutched the soldier's sleeve. He glanced down. Those eyes, pale and luminous, looked up at him with wordless trust. It broke something inside him. "Don't make a sound," he whispered, voice shaking. The patrol's footsteps thundered closer, heavy on the iron floors. The glow of scanners swept the chamber walls, lighting the debris like dawn. "Movement here," someone shouted. The soldier froze. Then a blinding beam cut through the crack above the stairwell, stopping inches from his face. He held his breath. The light lingered, then moved on. Moments stretched. Sweat slid down his neck, cold as the air around them. One of the soldiers called out, "Commander!" No signs of hostiles, just radiation from the old reactors. The commander's voice, deep and suspicious, replied through static, "Run a secondary scan. Heat signatures can hide under debris. We missed one last week. Cost us 3 men. The soldier felt the alien mother shift behind him. Her breathing was ragged, shallow. He turned and saw a faint blue shimmer spreading from her side. Her wound was glowing again, leaking faint warmth into the scanner field. His heart lurched. The machines would pick that up. Without thinking, he tore off his glove, pressed his bare hand against the wound, and whispered, "Stop, please." She stared at him, trembling, then closed her eyes. The glow dimmed, fading into a soft pulse. Above them, the commander stepped closer, scanning the floor. "Hold, I'm getting something." The soldier's stomach dropped. The commander's boots crunched on the debris, closer, closer, until his shadow loomed over the stairwell. The soldier's hand tightened on his pistol. He could kill him, one shot to the visor, but then the others would hear. He swallowed the thought, jaw trembling. Then the wind howled through the ruins, shaking the metal frames, and a sudden wave of static hit their comms. "Sir, interference is spiking. Reactor surge nearby," a soldier shouted. The commander cursed and turned away. "Fine. Pull back, we'll sweep again at dawn." Nothing survives long in this cold anyway. Their footsteps faded, one by one. Silence fell again, heavy and absolute. The soldier exhaled, his whole body trembling. He waited another minute, too, before daring to move. The alien mother was watching him. "You stopped the light," she said in a low, broken version of his tongue. He didn't answer. He just looked at his hand, her blood faintly glowing on his skin, fading now into nothing. "I didn't stop it," he said quietly. "You did." The child crawled out from under the blanket, blinking up at the human with an innocence that didn't belong in a world like this. "Are you one of them?" she asked softly. "One of the ones who hunt?" He looked at her, the question twisting in his chest. "I was," he whispered. "Maybe I still am." He stood slowly, moving toward the open arch to look at the snow-swept horizon. Faint lights flickered there, his patrol's camp. They were less than a mile away. He should have felt safe seeing it. But instead, he felt something else. The weight of the decision he'd made tonight. He turned back to the 2 figures huddled in the shadows, their alien faces lit by the dying red of the ember he'd hidden under a metal plate to keep them warm. He couldn't go back. Not now. Not after this. As dawn began to bleed faint light over the ruins, he heard the commander's voice again through the comm network, this time colder. "All units, be advised. Command reports one of our own went silent during last night's sweep. If found, bring him in alive for questioning. Priority status." The soldier stared out at the snow, the wind cutting across his face, and realized what that meant. They already knew. They were hunting him now, and the warmth he had shared, that single spark of mercy, had just turned into fire. The morning came without sunlight, only a dull gray glow that bled through the mist and ruin like the world itself was too tired to wake. The soldier had barely slept, his body numb from the cold and the fear that refused to fade. He watched the alien mother doze beside her child, the faint hum of her breathing blending with the wind outside. Her wound had closed slightly overnight, a strange shimmer beneath her skin sealing the edges as though the light itself obeyed her. The child, however, hadn't moved much. She sat near the dying fire, staring into it with an expression too old for her small face. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, fragile. "They will come again, won't they?" The soldier turned his gaze toward her. "Yes," he said. "They always come again." She nodded, as though she'd already known. Her hands were clasped around a small fragment of metal, smooth, curved, pulsing faintly with blue light. He frowned. "Where did you get that?" She didn't answer immediately. She lifted it slightly, and the firelight bent toward it, like drawn by invisible strings. The soldier blinked in disbelief. "What is that?" he asked again. Her mother stirred. "It's not a weapon," she murmured, her voice weak but sharp with warning. "It's what they were hunting for, what they thought we destroyed." The soldier crouched beside them, his breath fogging. "You mean that's what started the war?" The alien woman's eyes flickered open, and for the first time, he saw how deeply sorrow ran in them. Not fear, not anger, but something ancient, like she'd been mourning for years. "No," she said. "The war began long before this. But this is what could have ended it." The child looked up at him then, her pale blue irises reflecting faint streams of light from the object. "It remembers," she whispered. "It remembers everything." He stared at her, not understanding. "Remembers what?" "Us," she said simply. "And you." The soldier's throat went dry. He'd heard myths about alien relics, memory cores. Command had called them fragments of lost cities said to contain impossible data, things that could rewrite history itself. But no one had ever found one. They were dismissed as propaganda. Yet here it was, glowing in a child's hands. He reached toward it instinctively, but the alien mother caught his wrist. "Don't," she said, almost pleading. "It connects. It shows too much. A human mind isn't made for it." He hesitated, but something in the child's expression, that quiet mix of innocence and certainty, made him want to see, to know. He pulled his hand free gently. "Let me." The mother shook her head. "It could burn you from the inside." "Then at least I'll understand what I'm dying for," he said softly. The child tilted her head, studying him like she could already see what he didn't. Then slowly she held out the core. "It will show you if you don't fight it," she whispered. "But you won't like what it shows." He touched it. The world dissolved. Suddenly he was standing in light, endless, blinding white, and around him shapes formed like memories being born. He saw cities of crystal rising beneath alien suns, beings of light walking beside humans, their voices blending into one chorus. He saw treaties signed in the air, hands joined across species. He saw laughter, children with mixed faces, hybrid hearts, and then he saw fire, bombs falling, betrayal, orders given, human soldiers, his kind, breaking the pact they had once sworn to protect. He stumbled back, choking, his vision flickering between the past and the ruined present. He saw his own insignia, his own army, turning on the alien kind without warning. And the reason, it wasn't fear, it was power. The aliens' ability to merge memory and light had terrified the human command. They had wanted control of it, so they'd turned peace into extinction. When he let go, he collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The fire had burned low, and the child was staring at him, her expression unreadable. "Now you know," she said. He pressed a trembling hand to his head. "That can't be true. We were told you invaded." Her mother smiled faintly, bitterly. "Every story sounds cleaner when you tell it from the winning side." He didn't answer. He couldn't. His whole life, the orders, the justifications, the pride, cracked apart inside him like ice splitting under weight. "If command finds that thing," he said hoarsely, pointing at the memory core, "they'll kill you, and they'll kill me for touching it." The alien woman nodded slowly. "That's why we ran. She wasn't supposed to survive the purge. But she carries what's left of us." The child looked up at him. "It's not just memory," she said. "It can show the truth to everyone at once." If I reach the towers before they find me. Towers? He asked. The broadcast spires, the mother said quietly. They still stand in the southern valley. If she connects to them, your whole world will see what was hidden. He stared at the two of them, realization spreading cold through his veins. Then this isn't just about hiding anymore. It's about ending everything. The mother's gaze held his. Would you help us do that? He hesitated. His hands shook. If I do, I can never go back. Neither can we, she said simply. Outside, the wind had shifted. He heard engines, distant, mechanical, drawing closer. His squad was moving again. Faster this time. The child tucked the core beneath her clothes, and the light vanished. The soldier reached for his weapon, but the fire inside him had changed. He wasn't just protecting them anymore. He was protecting a truth big enough to burn both worlds clean. The alien mother stood, her breath visible in the cold air. They're coming, she whispered. He nodded, jaw tight. Then let's not be here when they arrive. As they slipped into the ruins and the snow swallowed their tracks, the first drone lights appeared on the horizon. Scanning, searching, hunting. And in that moment, the soldier knew. If the child's secret ever came to light, no army in the galaxy could stop what would follow. The storm began without warning, a rolling wall of white swallowing the world. Snow fell thick and soundless, covering the ruins in a pale, endless shroud that hid both the living and the dead. The soldier trudged through the wind with the alien mother and her child close behind, guiding them toward the southern cliffs. Every step felt heavier than the last. The child's small hand clung to his coat, her breath fogging in quick bursts of fear and exhaustion. He could hear the faint hum of the memory core hidden beneath her clothes, a pulse that seemed to beat in rhythm with his own. Somewhere behind them, engines whined through the storm, growing louder. They reached the edge of a shattered causeway and ducked into the remnants of an old transport station. The air inside was thick with dust and silence, broken only by the faint drip of melted snow from the ceiling. The soldier moved quickly, scanning the area for heat signatures, but the interference from the storm blurred everything. They were invisible for the moment, safe or close enough to pretend. The alien mother sank down against a rusted beam, clutching her child close. Her eyes shimmered faintly in the dim light. How much farther? She whispered. 2 days, maybe less if we move at night, he said. The spires are south, beyond the ridgeline. He tried to sound sure, but his voice wavered. 2 days was forever out here, and with patrols tightening, it was a miracle they'd made it this far. The child stirred, her voice soft. They're near, she said suddenly. I can feel them. He frowned, glancing at the scanner again. Static. No signatures. There's nothing. A sound cut through the wind outside. A familiar one. The steady, mechanical rhythm of boots on frozen metal. Human boots. He motioned for silence, his pulse spiking. Peering through a crack in the wall, he caught a glimpse of figures moving through the snow, his unit's insignia bright against the stormlight. And at the front, a tall man in a black visor helmet he knew too well. Sergeant Cole, his oldest friend. The sight hit him like a punch. Cole wasn't just another soldier. He was the one who'd saved him in the field, the one who'd shared rations and laughter and the long nights of war. If anyone could sense his presence, it was him. The soldier turned back to the alien mother, whispering urgently, Hide! Don't move! Don't make a sound! He pressed his sidearm into her hand. If they find you, she shook her head. I won't use it. You might have to, he insisted. She stared at him, calm and steady. You don't understand, human. We don't kill anymore. That's why they hate us. He didn't have time to argue. The door to the station creaked open, letting in a burst of snow and light. He stepped out from behind the beam, rifle lowered but ready, heart hammering. Cole, he said quietly. Cole turned, his visor flicking back to reveal a frostbitten grin. You bastard. I knew it. The soldier froze. Knew what? That you were alive, Cole said, stepping forward. Command's been screaming about a deserter. Said you went dark during the purge. Some even said you were dead. He looked around the room, eyes narrowing. But I know better. You always were too stubborn to die. The soldier forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. You shouldn't be here. Storm's too thick. Cole's expression didn't change. Neither should you. And yet, here you are, hiding in the middle of nowhere. He stepped closer, the muzzle of his rifle lowering, casual but dangerous. Tell me, old friend, what are you hiding? The soldier's throat tightened. Nothing. Just waiting out the storm. Cole's gaze drifted toward the shadows behind him, where the faintest flicker of movement betrayed the child's presence. His grin faded. You're lying. Cole. He raised his weapon. Step aside. No. The silence between them stretched, brittle as glass. Cole's face hardened. You know the penalty for harboring them. They're not people, brother. They're infection. Command says. I don't care what command says. The words tore out of him before he could stop them. The sound echoed through the ruins like gunfire. You didn't see what I saw, Cole. They're not monsters. We are. Cole's jaw clenched. You sound like one of them. I sound like someone who finally opened his damn eyes. The child whimpered behind the beam, and Cole's gaze snapped toward the sound. He raised his rifle. Step aside, or I'll do it myself. Time froze. The soldier's pulse became thunder in his ears. Every muscle screamed at him to do something. Cole was still his friend, but one more second and the whole world would end. He stepped between the rifle and the hidden figures. Cole's eyes widened. You're protecting them? I'm protecting the truth, the soldier said quietly. The shot came without warning. It wasn't Cole's. The alien mother had fired the sidearm he'd given her. Not to kill, but to knock the rifle from Cole's hands. The blast lit the room in white, deafening. Cole stumbled back, shocked. His training took over before thought could stop it. He reached for his sidearm and the soldier tackled him. They crashed to the floor, grappling, punches landing hard and fast. Listen to me, the soldier shouted. If you call this in, they'll kill them. They'll kill everyone. Cole spat blood, fury blazing in his eyes. You betrayed us. He broke free, snatched his calm, and shouted into it. Command! This is... But the soldier's hand slammed the device away, sending it skidding across the floor. The next moment was a blur. Two soldiers, one loyalty, one truth. The fight ended as suddenly as it began. Cole went still, the rifle between them smoking, eyes wide with disbelief. The soldier froze, staring down at him. No, he whispered. No, I didn't. Cole's lips moved. You always were too stubborn to die. Then his eyes dimmed. The alien mother approached slowly, the child clinging to her. He would have brought them all, she said softly. You had no choice. The soldier couldn't speak. His hands were shaking. He was my friend. And now you understand the cost, she said. You can't walk both paths anymore. He looked out through the broken door where the wind howled across the snow, and for the first time, he didn't know which side of the line he stood on. The storm outside was dying, but the one inside him was only just beginning. And far in the distance, through the static of his broken calm, a voice crackled faintly, a commander's voice, cold and certain. We've found his signal. Move in. No mercy. The storm broke at dawn, leaving a world made of white silence and death. The snow lay deep enough to swallow footprints, but the wind had died, and the horizon stretched wide and pitiless under a pale gray sky. The soldier tightened the straps of his pack and turned once more toward the ruin where Cole's body lay half-buried under frost. The wind had already begun to erase him. He wanted to say something, anything, but no words came. The alien mother stood behind him, her cloak drawn close around the child, who shivered in her arms. When the soldier finally spoke, his voice was low, hollow. We need to move. They'll track the gunfire. They set off southward through the snow, the landscape stretching empty and endless, dotted with the skeletal remains of old outposts and broken towers. The soldier's visor blinked with alerts, heat signatures, motion pings, fragments of transmission intercepts. Drones were already searching. The wind carried the faint hum of their rotors, mechanical wings slicing through the silence above. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every echo could have been the sound of their pursuers closing in. Hours passed. The world blurred into exhaustion and cold. The child stumbled often, her small feet leaving uneven prints that the soldier kept trying to erase with his boots. The alien mother's steps grew slower, her wound reopening beneath the layers of fabric. He tried to help her, but she only shook her head. "Save your strength for her," she whispered. "I can walk." "You can't if you freeze," he said sharply. But she didn't answer. She was staring at the horizon, where faint lights flickered through the snow, search beacons sweeping the wasteland like the eyes of gods. By midday, they reached the remains of a transport tunnel half buried in ice. The soldier led them inside, his breath visible in the dim light of his visor lamp. The tunnel stretched for miles, its metal walls scarred with ancient scorch marks and alien glyphs faded by time. The echoes of their footsteps mingled with the distant hum of the storm above. For a few moments it felt like the world had stopped hunting them. The child pressed close to him, her small voice breaking the quiet. "You don't have to be afraid," she said. He looked down at her, weary. "You don't understand. I'm not afraid for me." She tilted her head. "Then who?" He hesitated. "For both of you. For what'll happen if they catch us." The girl's expression softened. "They won't catch us." Before he could ask why, the sound of rotors filled the tunnel entrance, a growing metallic roar. The soldier turned sharply, his weapon raised, just as the first drone lights sliced through the snow and into the dark. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted down the tunnel, their footsteps echoing off the walls. Beams of red light cut through the darkness behind them, scanning, locking on. Bullets hissed past like sparks in the cold air. The soldier fired back, his rifle cracking with blue-white light, the recoil biting through his arms. One drone exploded against the ceiling, raining metal and smoke, but 3 more swept in to replace it. The air filled with the shriek of machines and the hum of energy fields activating. "Keep going!" he shouted, turning to cover them. The alien mother stumbled but pushed forward, dragging her child into the deeper dark. The soldier dropped to one knee, firing until his rifle overheated, then grabbed Cole's old sidearm from his belt and fired again. His breath came ragged, his fingers numb. A flash of motion, one of the drones dove at him, its blade wing extended. He rolled aside just as it sliced the ground where he'd been kneeling. The heat of its thrusters scorched his coat. He brought the pistol up and shot once, straight into its sensor core. It burst in flame, crashing into the wall. But the others were closing in. Then, suddenly, the air around him shimmered. The drone's sensors flickered, their targeting beams stuttering. The alien child had stopped running. She stood in the tunnel ahead, one hand outstretched, eyes glowing with pale light. The hum of the memory core echoed faintly through the metal walls. The soldier shouted, "No, don't." Too late. The light expanded, rippling like water through the air. The drones froze mid-flight, their engines whining, then one by one fell to the ground, lifeless. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the crackle of dying circuits. The tunnel glowed faintly for several long seconds, the light pulsing from the child's hands before fading into darkness again. She swayed, nearly collapsing, and her mother caught her. The soldier rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders. "What did you do?" "She stopped them," the mother said softly. "I know that," he snapped. "How?" The child looked at him with eyes that seemed far too old now. "I showed them what they were doing," she whispered. "Machines remember what they're told, but they don't understand. Now they do." He stared at her, the hair on his neck rising. "You changed their code?" She nodded faintly. "No, I changed their minds." He didn't know what to say. No human technology could do that. If Command ever learned this was possible, they'd never stop hunting her. "You can't use that again," he said firmly. "Not unless you have to. It'll give away our position." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "But they were going to hurt you." The soldier looked away, trying to hide the storm in his eyes. He wasn't supposed to care this much. He wasn't supposed to feel anything for them. But watching her, small, fragile, and impossibly powerful, he felt something close to awe. They moved again once the noise had faded. Outside, the snow had deepened, and daylight was turning thin and blue. They followed the ridgeline south, climbing through drifts that reached their knees. The world below was a wasteland of smoke and cold. By nightfall, the temperature dropped so low their breath froze in the air. The alien mother stumbled once, twice, before falling to her knees. The soldier caught her, lifting her up with one arm. "Don't stop now," he said. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "You can't carry us both. Watch me." The child pressed against his shoulder, whispering, "They're still looking for us. I can feel them thinking." He froze. "Thinking? They're afraid," she said. He didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. He kept walking. Hours later, the sky broke open again. This time not with snow, but with light. Search flares burst over the horizon, casting long shadows across the ice. The soldier looked up, heart sinking. Drones again, hundreds of them, sweeping the valley below. They had no more tunnels to hide in, no ruins, just open white. He glanced at the child and her mother. "We run on my mark," he said. "Stay close. Don't stop for anything." The alien mother met his eyes. "And if they catch us?" He chambered around, the sound sharp in the cold air. "Then we make sure they never forget why." When they ran, the snow exploded around their boots, their shadows stretching long across the ice. Above them, the sky filled with the mechanical hum of 100 searching machines, red lights sweeping the white world like judgment. The soldier didn't look back. He couldn't. Not when the only thing ahead was the faint, distant glow of the southern spires, the last hope for a truth the universe had tried to bury. Snow fell in heavy, unbroken silence, blanketing the charred earth and dead machines beneath a soft white veil. The human soldier, Kale, trudged through the storm with the alien mother and her child close behind, their breaths visible in the frozen air. They had been running for hours, fleeing from the patrols that had burned half the valley searching for them. Now, as exhaustion clawed at their limbs, they found shelter in the ruins of an ancient temple buried under the ice. The alien woman, Liara, touched the wall with trembling fingers. Her skin glowed faintly blue where it met the stone, and the symbols carved there responded, pulsing to life with dim light, like a heartbeat returning after centuries of stillness. Kale watched, breath caught in his chest. "What is this place?" he whispered. Liara didn't answer at first. Her eyes reflected the symbols, distant and mournful. "It was ours," she said softly, "before you called this world yours, before your kind forgot what it once was." The child, barely awake, touched one of the glowing symbols. A ripple of energy shivered through the air, and suddenly Kale saw flashes, images that weren't his own. Towers of crystal rising beneath twin moons, fields of silver grass bending under alien skies, and humans but not like him. Their armor was different, ancient, their faces peaceful, not hardened by war. The vision was gone as quickly as it came, leaving him shaking. "What did I just see?" he demanded. Liara sank against the wall, her voice no louder than the wind. "Memories," she said, "of when your ancestors came to our world. They promised unity. They brought fire instead." Kale stepped back, disbelief twisting in his gut. The official story said her people, the Valen, had been the aggressors, that they had invaded Earth's colonies without warning. But the tone in Liara's voice, the pain buried in her words, didn't sound like the voice of an invader. "You're saying humans started the war?" he asked. She met his gaze, and for the first time he saw not fear, but pity. "Not you," she said, "but those who built empires on your name. You were soldiers long before you were born." Her hand rested on the child's shoulder. "My people tried to protect what we found. You destroyed it." Kale looked around the ruined temple. The carvings, now faintly glowing, looked almost human, stylized figures of both species standing together. He ran his hand over one of them, tracing the outline of a human hand beside an alien one. We were allies once, he murmured. Liara nodded slowly. More than allies. We shared breath, language, blood. This world, Earth you call it, was not only yours. It was seeded by both. Kale felt the ground shift beneath him, as if her words cracked something fundamental. That's not possible, he said, voice hoarse. We would have known. Liara gave a sad, tired smile. You forgot. And those who remembered buried it deep. Outside, the wind grew stronger, carrying faint metallic hums, drones sweeping the horizon. Kale turned toward the entrance, weapon drawn, but Liara caught his wrist. Not yet, she whispered. The temple is hidden by memory itself. They will not see us while the lights still burn. The child stirred, eyes half open, irises glowing faintly like the symbols. Mother, he murmured. They're close. Liara pressed her hand to his forehead. Sleep, she said gently. Dream of warmth. Kale lowered his weapon, unsettled by the calm certainty in her voice. What is he? He asked. He's more than you, she said. More than me. He remembers the beginning. A faint hum filled the chamber as the light shifted from blue to gold. Kale turned toward the source, a small stone embedded in the altar, pulsing softly. Liara approached it, her fingers trembling. This is the memory stone, she said. It holds what was lost, the truth of our bond, and the proof of what was done. Kale stepped closer, but the air around it shimmered with energy. It remembers everyone who touched it, Liara said, her voice cracking. Every promise, every betrayal, every birth. I came here to retrieve it before your kind found it again. Kale frowned. Why? Why risk everything for a piece of rock? She looked at him, tears freezing on her cheeks. Because inside it is the memory of your first fire. The fire that began everything. If it falls into their hands again, they will erase what we once were, and the child's gift will be lost forever. He wanted to argue, to say it didn't make sense, but something in her voice silenced him. The stone pulsed again, and images filled the chamber, ghost-like figures walking through time. He saw humans and Valen together, building cities that stretched across stars. Then came soldiers in armor like his own, burning them down. He saw Liara's people hunted, their temples shattered, their names erased from records. We called it progress, Kale whispered bitterly. Liara's voice trembled. And we called it the end. The vision faded, leaving only the glow of the stone. Kale felt hollow, as if the ground of everything he believed had been pulled away. What happens now? He asked. Liara hesitated. You have seen, she said softly. Now you must decide. Do you burn the memory again? Or protect it? He looked at the child, then at her, then at the gun in his hand. Outside, the drones grew louder, closer, like a storm circling. The temple trembled. They're coming, he said. We can't stay. Liara nodded. Then we take the stone. She reached out, and as her hand closed around it, a surge of light exploded through the chamber. Kale shielded his eyes as the ground cracked and the symbols flared brighter than the sun. The stone's light poured into the air, shaping itself into a human face. An ancient one, stern and weary. It spoke in a voice that vibrated through Kale's bones. Who awakens the memory of the first fire? Liara's voice shook. Those who remember, she said, and those who wish to atone. The voice turned toward Kale. And you, human? He opened his mouth, but no words came. For the first time in his life, he didn't know whose side he was on. The light dimmed suddenly, the voice fading like smoke. Liara collapsed, clutching the stone to her chest. The child knelt beside her, his eyes wide with fear. Kale dropped to his knees, helping her sit up. Liara, he said urgently. What did it do? She smiled weakly. It remembered me, she whispered. It knows where we must go next. Her hand brushed his arm. But they will know too. The ground shook violently as explosions echoed outside. The drones had found something, maybe the energy surge, maybe them. Kale stood, weapon ready. We need to move. Liara rose unsteadily, the memory stone clutched tight. "We go north," she said, "to the frozen towers. There's one last memory waiting there." Kale nodded, helping her toward the door. Snow howled through the crack as they stepped into the storm. Behind them, the temple lights faded one by one, the walls closing around the silence of the past. And in the darkness left behind, the faintest whisper echoed through the chamber. A voice neither human nor alien. "The fire will burn again." The snow had stopped falling by the time Kale and Liara reached the outskirts of the burning city. Smoke and ash hung low in the air, turning the twilight into something orange and sickly. The capital, once a beacon of human pride, now looked like a pyre lit by its own arrogance. Towers cracked under the weight of explosions, ships blazed across the sky, and the distant roar of engines was drowned only by the screams. Kale stood on the ridge, his breath misting in the cold, the memory stone heavy in his hand. Behind him, Liara leaned against a broken wall, her child asleep against her chest, wrapped in a blanket of torn military fabric. Her voice was hoarse, but steady. "This is where you were made," she said, "and this is where it ends." He turned toward her, his jaw tight. "If we go in there, they'll kill us both. My commander, he's already hunting me. He'll call me a traitor." Liara's eyes softened. "He already does." She looked toward the city, her expression unreadable. "But you came back." Kale didn't answer. He couldn't explain why he had turned around instead of running north with her as planned. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was love. Or maybe, deep down, he just wanted to see if the world he'd served was still worth saving. "He needs to see the truth," Kale said finally. "If the memory stone really shows what you said it does, maybe it can end this." Liara's lips trembled. "Or it will make them burn us faster." He smiled faintly. "Then let's make it count." They slipped into the ruins under cover of darkness. The streets were littered with ash and flickering lights, soldiers dragging civilians away, drones screaming overhead. Kale kept his hood low, leading them through alleys he once patrolled. Every turn felt like walking through a memory he no longer belonged to. When they reached the central command tower, he paused, staring up at the massive steel structure wreathed in firelight. "He'll be inside," he said. Liara clutched the child closer. "And you think he'll listen?" Kale exhaled, eyes hard. "He has to." Inside, the air smelled of smoke and blood. The once gleaming hallways were cracked and scorched, soldiers shouting orders through the chaos. Kale moved fast, dragging Liara and the child through side corridors until they reached the war chamber. The doors were half broken, flames licking the edges. Through them, he saw Commander Roth, tall, armored, his face lit by the orange glow of a burning city outside. "Kale," Roth said without turning. His voice was calm, almost relieved. "You finally decided to come home." Kale froze. "You knew I'd come?" Roth turned slowly. His eyes fell on Liara and the child, and his smile vanished. "So it's true," he said quietly. "You've betrayed your species for one of them." Kale stepped forward, shaking his head. "You don't understand, sir. She's not the enemy. None of them were." Roth's gaze was like steel. "You think I don't know what they are? You've seen what they do, what they infect. That thing she carries could end humanity." Liara's voice broke the tension. "No, what we carry could save it." Roth's weapon was already drawn. "Silence, creature." Kale moved instinctively, standing between them. "You're wrong, Commander. Everything we've been told, it's a lie. They didn't start the war. We did, and we buried it." Roth's eyes narrowed. "You're repeating alien propaganda." Kale lifted the memory stone. "Then see for yourself." He placed it on the table. The stone flared to life, casting the room in blinding gold light. Roth flinched, but didn't look away. Images appeared, humans and Valen standing side by side, creating cities, exploring stars. Then came the fire, human ships descending on alien worlds, the betrayal that began it all. Roth staggered back, eyes wide. This can't be real." Liara's voice trembled, but her gaze was fierce. "It's your history. The truth your kind buried to justify its empire. Roth's jaw clenched. Even if it's true, it changes nothing. We can't undo what's done. They'll slaughter us if they rise again. Kale's voice rose. They're not rising, they're dying. You're hunting the last of them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Roth's eyes flicked to the child. That's why you brought it here, he said slowly. The hybrid. It's a weapon, isn't it? Liara took a step back, shaking her head. He's not a weapon. Roth aimed his gun. Then prove it. Kale lunged, knocking the barrel aside as the shot fired. The blast tore through the ceiling, raining sparks and smoke. Alarms blared. Soldiers shouted outside. Kale slammed Roth against the wall, fury in his voice. He's a child. Roth's expression twisted in rage. You don't see it. They twist your mind, your mercy. That's how they win. He threw Kale off with surprising strength. You could have been remembered as a hero. Instead, you'll die as a traitor. Before he could fire again, the child screamed. A sound that wasn't human. The air rippled. Flames bent backward. The walls groaned as energy surged from the child's body, golden light bursting outward. Time itself seemed to pause. Kale watched in disbelief as Roth froze mid-step, his eyes wide, the bullet hanging motionless in the air. Liara's voice echoed through the stillness. You see now why they fear him? The child trembled, tears streaming down his cheeks. I didn't mean to, he whispered. Liara knelt beside him. It's all right. You saved us. Kale turned toward her. What did he do? Liara's voice was filled with awe and sorrow. He touched the memory of time. He can make it remember what it was before. The light dimmed, and time snapped back. Roth collapsed, dropping his weapon, gasping for breath. He looked at the boy in terror. That thing, it's not human. You can't let it live. Kale's voice was cold. Then you'll have to go through me. Roth's eyes softened just for a moment. A flicker of something almost like pity. You were one of my best, he said. I'll remember you that way. He reached for a detonator on his wrist. Kale's eyes widened. No! The explosion tore through the tower. Glass shattered, fire roared, and the floor gave way. Kale grabbed Liara and the child as the world collapsed around them, diving through the flames. They crashed through twisted metal, landing hard on a lower floor. Smoke filled his lungs, but he pushed himself up, dragging them toward the shattered balcony. Below, the city burned brighter than ever. Liara coughed, clutching the memory stone to her chest. He'll bring it all down, she said weakly. He'd rather destroy it than face the truth. Kale looked at her, his face streaked with ash. Then we make sure someone remembers. He pulled her close as another explosion rocked the skyline. The tower groaned, tilting toward the firestorm below. Kale, she whispered. If we die here, he shook his head. We won't. He looked down at the sleeping child in her arms, his voice breaking. He's the future, Liara, not the end. The flames rose higher, painting the sky blood red. And as the tower began to fall, Kale made a single desperate choice, one that would change everything that came after. The wind howled through the ruins of the city, carrying the smell of smoke, melted steel, and ash. Kale stumbled through the wreckage, his vision blurred by dust and blood. The tower behind him burned like a dying star, collapsing in slow, echoing roars. In his arms, the child stirred, half-conscious, wrapped in what remained of Liara's cloak. The alien mother lay beside him, motionless, her skin pale against the flickering red glow. Kale dropped to his knees beside her, trembling. Liara, he whispered, his voice breaking. She opened her eyes slowly, faintly glowing beneath the soot. You kept him safe. He nodded, tears streaking his face. We made it. You're going to be all right. She smiled weakly, a soundless breath that might have been a laugh. You humans always lie beautifully. He tried to lift her, but she shook her head. No, Kale, it's all right. Her hand reached up, brushing his cheek with trembling fingers. You remember warmth now. He pressed her hand against his skin, unwilling to let go. "You can't leave," he said hoarsely. "The child, he needs you." Liara's eyes softened as she looked toward her son. "He doesn't need me anymore. He has your fire now." She looked past him, toward the shattered sky where ships burned and fell like dying stars. "This world will remember what you did, even if you don't." Her voice was fading, like a song drifting into the cold. Kale gripped her hand tighter. "Don't go," he whispered. "Please." The child stirred, his small voice breaking the silence. "Mother." Liara turned her head weakly. "My light," she said, barely audible. "Remember the warmth." And then her hand slipped from Kale's, falling still. The wind took her last breath, scattering it into the night. For a long time, Kale didn't move. The fire burned lower, and the sounds of battle faded into the distance. Only when the first snow began to fall again did he finally stand, lifting the child into his arms. "She's gone," he said softly. The boy looked up at him, eyes wide and glowing faintly. "No," he whispered. "She's with us." A soft light shimmered from the memory stone lying in the rubble beside them. Pulsed once, then twice as if answering. Kale bent to pick it up. The instant his fingers touched its surface, the air around them shifted. The ruins, the fire, the snow, all dissolved into light. He found himself standing in a vast, endless plain beneath a sky of swirling colors. Figures moved around him, humans and Valen, their forms half-translucent, their faces serene. Among them, Liara stood, smiling faintly. "You see," she said, "memory never dies. It just waits for someone to remember." Kale looked around, awed. "What is this?" "The memory you restored," she said. "The one your kind forgot." She stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "You didn't just save us, Kale. You reminded your world of what it once was, of what it could be again." He wanted to reach for her, but she was already fading, her image breaking apart into dust and light. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them we were never enemies." And then she was gone. The light shattered, and Kale was back in the ruins. The memory stone lay dark and cold in his hand. The boy tugged at his sleeve. "She said you'd show them." Kale looked at him, really looked, and saw in the child's eyes not just Liara's glow, but something deeply human reflected there too. He nodded. "Then we will." He walked through the burning city, carrying the boy, past soldiers who stopped and stared. The firelight caught the alien child's face, but no one raised a weapon. The war had burned too long. Something in that moment, the sight of a human carrying what they had been told to destroy, made the fighting falter. The drones hovered uncertainly. The shouts faded. For the first time in years, there was silence. Kale stopped in the city square, where the banners of both sides lay torn and bloodied. He lifted the child high, his voice carrying through the smoke. "No more," he shouted. "This ends tonight. She's gone, but her memory remains. You can burn every city, every name, every sky, but you will never kill what made us human." The silence deepened. Then someone dropped a weapon. Another followed. The crowd began to move. Soldiers lowering their rifles, machines powering down, flames dying in the cold air. And then, quietly, impossibly, people knelt. By dawn, the fires had dimmed, and snow blanketed the ruins once more. The boy sat beside Kale, watching the sun rise over the smoking horizon. "Will they remember her?" he asked. Kale's voice was low, rough with exhaustion. "If they don't, I'll remind them." Years later, travelers would find a statue in the rebuilt city. Two figures standing together in the snow. One human, one alien, their hands intertwined. The inscription read, "He broke every law to keep her warm, and in doing so, humanity remembered what warmth meant." And somewhere, far beyond the stars, in a place no map could find, a woman's voice whispered into the cold, "The warmth was never the fire. It was you."